The chandelier cast fragments of light across the marble floor like scattered diamonds, illuminating 500 of Rome's most powerful faces. Sophia Morelli stood motionless in the center of the ballroom, her champagne-colored gown catching the light, her hand resting gently on the subtle curve of her belly. Her husband's words still hung in the air like poison. A convenient arrangement, he had called her. Nothing more. The whispers began immediately, sharp, cruel, delicious to those who fed on scandal. She didn't cry. She didn't move. She simply stood there, hazel eyes fixed on some distant point, as if she had already left her body behind. Then the massive oak doors at the entrance swung open. 3 silhouettes filled the frame, and Dante Morelli, for the first time in his 37 years, felt genuine fear. The evening had begun like any other in the world of Italian elite. Champagne flowing like water, laughter masking ambition, and alliances being forged and broken between appetizers. The Palazzo Ferretti had been transformed into a sanctuary of opulence for the annual autumn gala, an event that brought together Rome's most influential families under the pretense of charity. Sophia had spent 3 hours preparing for tonight. Her dress, a flowing champagne silk that cascaded to the floor, had been chosen specifically to accommodate her changing body. At 4 months pregnant, the curve was subtle but present, a secret she and Dante hadn't yet announced publicly. She had styled her long dark brown hair in soft waves that fell past her shoulders, applied minimal makeup to enhance her naturally expressive features, and selected jewelry that spoke of elegance rather than excess. She had wanted to make him proud. That thought now felt like a knife in her chest. The drive to the palazzo had been silent. Dante had spent the entire journey on his phone, barking orders in Italian, his jaw tight with tension. She had tried to reach for his hand once. He had pulled away. "Not now, Sophia." Those 2 words had become the soundtrack of their marriage. Not now. Not yet. Not tonight. Not ever. She had learned to swallow her disappointment like medicine, bitter but necessary. When they arrived, Dante had stepped out of the car first, buttoning his black tailored jacket as photographers captured his image. He looked devastating as always, the slicked-back black hair, the dark gray eyes that seemed to see through everyone and everything, the controlled power in every movement. His collar was open just enough to reveal the edge of the intricate tattoo that climbed his neck. A crowned lion intertwined with a Roman cross, smoke shading fading into his skin. A mark of legacy, a mark of dominion. He hadn't waited for her. By the time Sophia emerged from the car, smoothing her dress over her belly, he was already halfway up the steps, shaking hands with a business associate. She had followed alone. The first hour of the gala had passed in a blur of polite smiles and surface-level conversation. Sophia had perfected the art of being a Mafia wife, gracious but guarded, warm but watchful. She knew how to navigate these waters. She had been raised for them, though no one here knew that truth. To the Roman elite, she was simply Sophia, a woman of modest background who had somehow captured the attention of Dante Morelli, head of one of Italy's most powerful crime families. They assumed she was beautiful but powerless, charming but disposable. They were wrong. But Sophia had long ago learned that power wielded quietly was power that lasted. She had spotted Dante across the ballroom around 9 o'clock. He was surrounded by his usual circle: business partners, political connections, men who owed him favors and women who wished they could capture his attention. She had started walking toward him, intending to join him, to stand at his side where she belonged. That's when she saw her. Valentina Ricci. The woman was draped in red, her curves displayed like weapons, her blonde hair pulled back in a severe bun that only highlighted her sharp features. She was leaning close to Dante, whispering something that made him smile. Dante never smiled. Sophia felt the cold wash over her before she could stop it. She knew about Valentina, everyone did. The woman had been Dante's mistress years ago, before the marriage. Their relationship had supposedly ended when the wedding contract was signed. Supposedly. Sophia had never asked Dante directly. She had been too afraid of the answer. Now, watching his hand rest on Valentina's lower back, watching him lean in to hear her better, Sophia felt something fracture inside her chest. She turned away before anyone could see the crack in her composure. "You look pale, dear." The voice came from her left. Elena Marchetti, wife of a prominent banker, was eyeing her with barely concealed satisfaction. "Is everything all right? You seem distressed." "I'm fine," Sophia managed. "Just tired." "Of course." Elena's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Pregnancy does take its toll. Though I'm surprised Dante brought you tonight, given your condition. Most men prefer their wives to rest during such delicate times." The implication was clear. "You're already losing him." Sophia excused herself and found a quiet corner near the window. The city lights of Rome sparkled beyond the glass, beautiful and indifferent. She pressed her hand to her belly, feeling the life growing there. The life that was supposed to bring them closer. Instead, it had only widened the distance. Their marriage had been arranged, but not in the way most assumed. It had been presented as a strategic alliance. Dante needed stability, a legitimate family image to soften his reputation as he expanded into legal ventures. Sophia had been recommended by mutual connections as a suitable bride. Educated, elegant, well-mannered. What Dante hadn't known, what no one in Rome knew, was that Sophia hadn't been chosen at random. She had been placed. But that truth was buried deep, locked away even from her husband. Her family had ensured her safety from a distance, watching, waiting, never interfering unless absolutely necessary. Tonight, Sophia wondered if they were watching now. She was pulled from her thoughts by a hand on her arm. Not gentle, but possessive. "What are you doing hiding in corners?" Dante's voice was low, irritated. "People are watching. Come." He didn't wait for her response, simply pulled her toward the center of the room where conversations flowed like rivers of privilege. Sophia followed as she always did. For the next 30 minutes, she performed her role flawlessly. She smiled at introductions, laughed softly at appropriate moments, complimented wives on their jewelry while they evaluated her worth with calculating eyes. She was perfect. Dante barely acknowledged her. His attention kept drifting, to business discussions, to Valentina across the room, to everything and everyone except the woman carrying his child. Sophia felt the exhaustion settling into her bones. The baby made her tired more easily these days, and standing in heels for hours while maintaining emotional composure was draining her faster than usual. "Dante," she murmured during a brief pause in conversation, "I need to sit down for a moment." He glanced at her, something flickering in those gray eyes. Annoyance? Concern? She couldn't tell anymore. "Fine. I'll find you later." He was gone before she could respond. Sophia made her way to a chair near the edge of the ballroom, sinking into it with relief. A waiter offered her water, which she accepted gratefully. For a few precious minutes, she simply breathed, letting her mask slip just slightly. That's when Marco Vitelli approached. She recognized him immediately, the youngest son of the Vitelli family, known for their wine empire and their tendency to meddle in mafia affairs without fully committing to either side. Marco was handsome in a boyish way, with curly dark hair and an easy smile that probably charmed most women. Sophia was not most women. "Mrs. Morelli," he said, taking the seat beside her without invitation. "You look like you could use better company than what this room has to offer." "I'm quite comfortable, thank you." "Are you?" His eyes dropped to her belly, then back to her face. "Because from where I'm standing, your husband seems to have forgotten you exist." The words struck harder than they should have. "My husband is conducting business," she said carefully, "as expected at events like these." "Is that what they're calling it now?" Marco laughed softly, glancing toward where Dante stood with Valentina. "Business?" Sophia felt heat crawling up her neck. "I don't engage in gossip, Mr. Vitelli." "Of course not. You're too dignified for that." He leaned closer, his voice dropping. "But dignity doesn't keep you warm at night, does it? Doesn't hold you when you're scared. Doesn't tell you that you matter." "You should leave," Sophia said, her voice hardening. "Now." Marco held up his hands in mock surrender. "Just making an observation. If Dante doesn't appreciate what he has." He let the sentence hang, unfinished but clear. He rose and walked away, leaving Sophia trembling with a mixture of anger and humiliation. She didn't know Dante had been watching. She didn't see him excuse himself from his conversation, his jaw tightening as he observed the exchange. She didn't realize that his pride, already wounded by a tense business negotiation earlier that evening, was about to explode in the worst possible direction. Sophia was still trying to compose herself when a hand closed around her arm, hard enough to bruise. "Get up." Dante's voice was ice. She looked up at him, startled by the fury in his eyes. "Dante, what?" "I said get up." He pulled her to her feet, not violently but firmly, steering her toward the center of the ballroom. People were starting to notice. Conversations faltered. Eyes turned. "Dante, please," Sophia whispered. "Whatever you think you saw. I saw you entertaining that pathetic excuse for a man while carrying my child. He approached me. I sent him away." "Did you?" Dante's laugh was cold, carrying. "Is that why you were leaning in, smiling, enjoying his attention?" "I wasn't." "Enough." The word cracked through the air like a whip. They had reached the center of the room now. The orchestra had gone quiet. Every face was turned toward them, eager and expectant. Sophia realized, with dawning horror, what was about to happen. "Dante," she breathed. "Not here. Please." But his wounded pride had already made the decision. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dante's voice carried through the ballroom, commanding instant attention. "I apologize for the interruption, but I believe some clarification is necessary regarding my wife." The last word dripped with contempt. Sophia felt her heart stop. "Many of you have speculated about our marriage," Dante continued, his gray eyes sweeping the crowd. "You've wondered why a man of my position would choose a woman of such modest origins." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Sophia stood frozen, her hand pressed protectively over her belly. "The truth is simple." Dante turned to look at her, and what she saw in his eyes broke something fundamental inside her chest. This was a convenient arrangement. Nothing more. The gasp that swept through the ballroom was audible. "I needed a wife who would be manageable, compliant, someone who would understand her place and stay in it." His lip curled. "I'm beginning to realize I chose poorly." "Dante." Her voice came out as a whisper, but it carried in the silence. "I'm carrying your child." "Are you?" The question was deliberately cruel, designed to wound. "I've heard rumors about Vitelli's interest in you. Perhaps you can understand my concerns." The implication was clear, public, devastating. Sophia felt the floor tilt beneath her. 500 people were watching her be destroyed by the man who had vowed to protect her. 500 people were hearing him question the paternity of her unborn child. 500 people were witnessing her humiliation and doing nothing. She didn't cry. She had learned long ago that tears were weapons men used against women. So she locked them away, deep in her chest where they could become something harder, something dangerous. Instead, she stood perfectly still, her hazel eyes fixed on some distant point beyond her husband's shoulder. Her hand remained steady on her belly. Her spine remained straight. The silence stretched. Dante seemed to expect something. Tears, perhaps, begging, the satisfaction of seeing her crumble. He got none of it, and somehow that made him angrier. "Nothing to say?" he sneered. "No defense? No explanation?" Sophia looked at him then, really looked at him, and he saw something in her eyes that he didn't understand. Something that looked almost like pity. "I don't owe you explanations," she said quietly. "Not for conversations I didn't seek. Not for attention I didn't encourage. And not for the child I carry, who is yours whether you choose to believe it or not." Her voice didn't waver, didn't break. It was the most beautiful and terrifying thing Dante had ever witnessed. But before he could respond, before he could reclaim the control he felt slipping away, the massive oak doors at the entrance swung open with a force that shook the walls. 3 men walked in. The crowd parted for them like the Red Sea, not because they demanded it, but because their very presence commanded it. They moved in perfect synchronization, black suits impeccable, faces carved from stone. Dante felt his blood run cold. He knew those faces. The Bellini brothers. Matteo, the eldest, walked at the center. He was tall, over 6 feet, with dark hair graying slightly at the temples and eyes that had seen empires rise and fall. His features were sharp, aristocratic, bearing an unmistakable resemblance to. Dante's gaze snapped to Sophia. The same bone structure, the same elegant strength, the same quiet power that he had somehow mistaken for submission. His mind raced, processing, calculating. Ricardo walked to Matteo's right, younger by 5 years, with a presence that radiated barely controlled violence. His hands hung loose at his sides, but Dante knew men like him. They didn't need weapons to be dangerous. Luca brought up the left flank, the youngest but perhaps the most unsettling. His eyes swept the room with the cold precision of a strategist, cataloging exits, threats, weaknesses. When those eyes landed on Dante, they lingered. The message was clear. I see you. I know what you are. And I am not afraid. The brothers stopped 5 feet from where Sophia stood. Sister, Matteo said simply. The word detonated in the silence like a bomb. Sister. Sophia Bellini. Not Sophia of modest origins. Not Sophia the convenient arrangement. Sophia, youngest child of the Bellini family, one of the most powerful Mafia dynasties in southern Italy. Their territory stretched from Naples to Calabria, their influence reaching into every level of government, business, and organized crime. And Dante had just publicly humiliated their baby sister, the mother of her unborn child. In front of 500 witnesses, Sophia finally moved, finally breathed. She walked toward her brothers with steady grace, her champagne gown flowing behind her, and stopped before Matteo. He didn't reach for her, didn't embrace her, simply looked at her with eyes that held decades of protection and quiet fury. Are you all right? He asked, his voice pitched low but carrying perfectly in the absolute silence of the ballroom. I am now. Matteo nodded once. Then he turned those eyes, those terrible ancient eyes, on Dante Morelli. We need to have a conversation, Matteo said, about what constitutes appropriate behavior toward a Bellini woman. Dante's mouth had gone dry. He had built his empire on never showing weakness, never backing down, never letting anyone see him falter. But standing before the 3 men who now flanked his wife whose true identity he had never known, he felt something unfamiliar cracking through his armor. Fear. Not of death. Men like him didn't fear death, but of something worse. He feared that everything he thought he knew, everything he thought he controlled, had been a carefully constructed illusion. And he had just shattered it himself. The crowd hadn't moved. 500 of Rome's most powerful people stood frozen. Champagne glasses suspended mid-sip, conversations dead on their tongues. They were witnessing something they would discuss for decades. The moment Dante Morelli discovered he had married into a family that could crush him without breaking a sweat. Ricardo stepped forward, positioning himself slightly in front of Sophia. His movement was subtle but deliberate, a wall of protection that told the room exactly where his priorities lay. Perhaps we should take this somewhere more private, Luca suggested, his voice soft and reasonable and utterly terrifying. Unless you prefer to conduct this conversation with an audience. Dante's eyes swept the crowd. The watching, waiting, hungry crowd. He saw Elena Marchetti practically vibrating with excitement. He saw Marco Vitelli's face pale with the realization of what he had nearly entangled himself in. He saw 100 faces that would carry the story to every corner of Rome before dawn. The study, Dante managed, his voice rough. This way. He didn't wait to see if they followed. He couldn't bear to watch Sophia walk away from him with her brothers. Couldn't bear the sight of her being reclaimed by a family whose power dwarfed his own. Couldn't bear the knowledge of what he had done. The study was 2 floors up, accessed through a private corridor that the palazzo's owners had shown him earlier that evening. The irony wasn't lost on him. He had been so proud then, so confident in his position at the top of Rome's food chain. That confidence lay shattered at his feet now. He entered the study first, moving to the window where the city lights offered no comfort. Behind him, he heard footsteps, the measured pace of men who never rushed, followed by the softer sound of Sophia's heels. The door closed with a decisive click. "Sit," Matteo said. Dante turned, bristling at being commanded in his own city. "I prefer to stand." That wasn't a request. The words were calm, almost pleasant, but Dante found himself sitting before he could stop his body from responding. It was instinct, the recognition of apex predator in the presence of another, more dangerous species. Matteo took the chair across from him. Riccardo and Luca flanked their sister, who remained standing by the fireplace, the flames casting shadows across her face. She hadn't looked at Dante since her brothers arrived. "Let me tell you a story," Matteo began, crossing one leg over the other with casual elegance. 30 years ago, our father made a decision. He had 3 sons and 1 daughter, and he loved them all equally, but his daughter— Matteo's eyes softened almost imperceptibly. His daughter was different. She had her mother's grace and her father's steel, and he knew from the moment she was born that men would underestimate her. Dante felt the words like physical blows. "So he raised her in 2 worlds," Matteo continued. "In public, she was the modest one, the quiet one, the one who would never threaten anyone's ego. In private, she was trained in everything we were trained in: strategy, negotiation, how to read a man's weaknesses in the way he holds his shoulders." Dante's eyes cut to Sophia, seeing her suddenly with new clarity. The way she held herself, the steadiness of her gaze, the absence of fear even when he had torn her apart in front of hundreds. She hadn't been weak. She had been playing a role, and he had been too blinded by his own arrogance to see it. When the opportunity arose for a strategic marriage, Matteo continued, Sophia volunteered. She saw something in the Morelli organization that interested her, potential for legitimate expansion, influence in Rome that could benefit both families. "She chose me," Dante said, the realization dawning slowly. "She chose you," Matteo confirmed. "Against our advice, I might add. We had concerns about your reputation, your treatment of women, your legendary pride." His voice hardened. "It appears those concerns were justified." Dante opened his mouth to respond, but Riccardo cut him off. "Do you understand what you did tonight?" The younger brother's voice was tight with controlled rage. "You accused our sister of infidelity. You questioned the paternity of your own child. You humiliated her in front of 500 witnesses. I saw. You saw a man approach your wife uninvited," Riccardo interrupted. "You saw her send him away. You chose to interpret that through your own jealousy and wounded pride, and you chose to destroy her publicly rather than ask her privately." The accuracy of the accusation left Dante speechless. Luca spoke for the first time since entering the room, his soft voice somehow more unsettling than his brother's fury. "Here is what is going to happen. You are going to announce tomorrow that you were temporarily indisposed this evening, a reaction to medication, perhaps, or extreme stress from business dealings. You will publicly apologize to your wife for any misunderstanding. You will spend the remainder of her pregnancy proving that you are worthy of the gift she carries. And if I refuse?" The question was pride speaking, desperate, wounded pride that couldn't accept this reversal of power. Matteo smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. "Then we dissolve this marriage and take our sister home. The child will be raised as a Bellini. Your influence in Rome will systematically disintegrate as every connection, every favor, every alliance you've built discovers that crossing the Bellini family comes with consequences." He paused, letting the words sink in. "You built your empire over 15 years. We could unmake it in 15 days. Dante believed him. The silence stretched, broken only by the crackling of the fire and the distant sounds of the gala continuing below. Sophia. Her name left his lips before he could stop it. She finally looked at him, and what he saw in her hazel eyes made his chest constrict. Not anger, not hatred. Sadness. Deep, profound sadness. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked. "All this time, why hide who you are? Would it have mattered?" Her voice was steady, but something raw lurked beneath the surface. Would you have treated me differently if you had known I came from power? Would you have been kinder, more attentive, less likely to ignore me for months at a time? He had no answer. I didn't want to be loved because of my family name, Sophia continued. I wanted to be loved because of who I am. I thought. She paused, and he saw the first crack in her composure. I thought if you saw me without the power, without the protection, you might eventually see me. Really see me. I was blind. Yes, she agreed quietly. You were. Matteo rose, signaling the end of the conversation. We'll be staying at the Hotel de Russi. Sophia will remain with us tonight while you consider your options. No. The word came from Sophia, not Dante. Everyone turned to look at her. I'm not leaving my home, she said firmly. This is my marriage, my situation, and I will handle it my way. Sophia, Ricardo began. I said no. Her voice carried the steel Matteo had described. You came when I needed you, and I'm grateful. But I am not a child to be rescued. I am a Bellini woman, and I will decide what happens next. Dante watched her brothers struggle with this, their protective instincts warring with their respect for her autonomy. Finally, Matteo nodded. As you wish, but we stay in Rome until this is resolved. I wouldn't expect anything less. Sophia turned to Dante, and for the first time since his public humiliation, she addressed him directly with something other than sadness in her eyes. You and I need to talk. Alone. The brothers left reluctantly, extracting promises that Sophia would call if she needed them, that she would not hesitate, that she would remember she had options. She assured them she would. Then she was alone with her husband. The study felt smaller now, the walls pressing in with the weight of everything that had been revealed. Dante remained seated, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. I'm not going to apologize for my family, she said quietly, or for who I am. I'm not asking you to. Then what are you asking? Dante ran his hand over his face, and for the first time since she'd known him, he looked exhausted. The mask of control had slipped, revealing something vulnerable beneath. I'm asking how I didn't see it, he said. A year of marriage. Countless conversations. The way you handled every challenge, every social situation, every moment of pressure with perfect composure. He shook his head. I should have known. You saw what you expected to see. A convenient arrangement, I believe you called it. He flinched at having his words thrown back at him. That was honest. Sophia cut in. Perhaps the most honest you've been with me since our wedding night? Cruel, he corrected quietly. It was cruel and untrue. Sophia felt something shift in her chest, but she wasn't ready to let go of her guard. Not yet. What exactly was untrue about it? Because from where I've been standing, this marriage has been nothing but convenience. You needed a wife for appearances. I needed. She stopped, unwilling to reveal too much. What did you need? His voice was softer now, genuinely curious. Your family has more power than mine. More money. More connections. What could I possibly have offered you? The question hung between them. Sophia moved to the window, looking out at the city that had never quite felt like home. I was tired, she admitted. Tired of being a Bellini. Tired of every relationship being analyzed for strategic value. Tired of men wanting me for my family's power or fearing me for the same reason. She turned to face him. You didn't know who I was. You looked at me and saw. Just me. I thought maybe, eventually, that could grow into something real. Instead, I ignored you. The self-recrimination in his voice was genuine. I buried myself in business and let you disappear into the background. Yes. And tonight. Tonight you proved that even when you look at me, you don't see me at all. Her voice cracked slightly. You saw a possession being encroached upon. Not a wife. Not the mother of your child. An object. Dante rose from his chair and moved toward her. She didn't step back, but she didn't welcome him either. I was jealous. The admission seemed to cost him something. I saw Vitelli talking to you, and I saw you respond, and something. He broke off, struggling to find words. I don't know how to explain it. I haven't felt jealousy since I was a young man with nothing. I built walls against it. But seeing him close to you, seeing you engage with him when you've been pulling away from me. I've been pulling away because you pushed me away first, Sophia said. Every time I tried to reach for you, you weren't there. Every dinner I prepared that you missed. Every conversation I tried to start that you cut short. Every night I fell asleep alone while you worked or otherwise occupied yourself. Valentina, I wasn't going to say it. You didn't have to. I saw you notice us tonight. Sophia crossed her arms, a barrier between them. Is it still happening? Between you? No. The answer was immediate. It ended before our wedding. Did it? Dante's jaw tightened. She approached me tonight just as Vitelli approached you. I should have walked away immediately. I didn't. And I compounded that failure by taking my guilt out on you. Sophia absorbed this, trying to parse truth from excuse. The baby, she said finally. You questioned the baby. Pain flickered across his features. I didn't mean. But you said it. In front of everyone. You suggested that this child might not be. Her voice broke, and she pressed her hand to her belly, feeling the flutter of movement that had just started in recent days. This baby is yours. You know that. You know I have never been with anyone else. I know. He took another step closer. I know, and I said it anyway because I wanted to hurt you as much as I was hurting. That makes it worse, not better. Yes, she agreed. It does. They stood there, husband and wife, separated by a few feet and a vast ocean of damage. What happens now? Dante asked. I don't know. Sophia felt the exhaustion of the evening crashing over her. I know what my brothers want. They want me to leave you. They want to absorb your organization and make an example of how you treated me. Is that what you want? She looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the man she had married. The cold exterior. The fierce intelligence. The pride that bordered on fatal. But also the flashes of something else she had glimpsed in rare moments. A loneliness that matched her own. A hunger for something he couldn't name. A capacity for more than he allowed himself to show. I wanted a real marriage, she said softly. I wanted a partner. I wanted to be seen. Tonight you destroyed any illusion that was possible. What if I could rebuild it? Can you? The question was genuine. Can you be the man who sees his wife as an equal rather than a possession? Who comes home at night and actually talks to her? Who holds her when she's scared about becoming a mother and admits when he's scared too? I don't know, Dante admitted, and somehow his honesty was more reassuring than false promises would have been. I don't know if I can be that man. I've never tried. But he struggled with the words. I don't want to lose you. I didn't know that until tonight, until I saw your brothers walk in and realized they could take you away forever. The thought of it. The thought of losing your alliance with the Bellinis? No. His gray eyes met hers with unexpected intensity. The thought of losing you. Your voice in the morning. The way you hum when you think no one's listening. The way you always know when I've had a difficult day, even when I don't say anything. The way you've somehow made that cold house feel like home without me even noticing. Sophia felt tears threatening, but she blinked them back. She wasn't ready to soften yet. Words are easy, Dante. Tonight you spoke words that cut me to the bone. How do I know these words are any different? You don't, he said simply. You can't. I have to show you over time with actions. And you have every right not to give me that chance. But you're asking me to. Yes. He took a breath. I'm asking you for time. For the opportunity to prove that I can be better than what I showed tonight. For the chance to know you. Really know you as you wanted to be known. Sophia turned back to the window, processing everything. The city lights blurred through unshed tears. I need to sleep, she said finally. I'm exhausted, and the baby. She trailed off, pressing her hand to the small curve. We can continue this conversation tomorrow. Sophia. She turned at his voice. Can I at least see you home safely? Your home or mine? The question had multiple meanings, and they both knew it. Ours, he said carefully. If you'll still have it be ours. She considered refusing. considered calling Matteo and demanding a car to the hotel, making Dante wait and wonder and suffer. But that was the old game, the power play, the strategic move, and she was tired of games. "One night at a time," she said. "That's all I can promise." Something like hope flickered in his gray eyes. It was small, tentative, easily extinguished. But it was there. "One night at a time," he agreed. The car ride home was silent, but different from the silence of the drive to the gala. That silence had been cold, dismissive. This silence was heavy with unspoken things. Dante's driver navigated the Rome streets with practiced efficiency, passing landmarks that Sophia had come to know over the past year. The Colosseum, the Forum, the ancient bones of an empire that had risen and fallen long before their families ever existed. Power was always temporary, she thought. What mattered was what you built with it. The Morelli estate sat on the outskirts of the city, a sprawling villa surrounded by immaculate gardens and security measures invisible to the casual observer. Sophia had spent a year making it feel like home, adding warmth to the cold marble, life to the formal rooms, humanity to the fortress Dante had constructed around himself. Now she wondered if any of it had mattered. "I'll have Maria prepare the guest suite," Dante said as they pulled through the gates. Sophia looked at him sharply. "Why?" "Because I don't expect—" He stopped, recalibrating. "Because you should have space, time, whatever you need." It was the most considerate thing he'd said to her in months. "I'll stay in our room," she said quietly. "But I want to sleep. Just sleep. Nothing else." "Of course." They entered the house together, passing through the grand foyer with its sweeping staircase and crystal chandelier. Normally, Sophia would have paused to exchange pleasantries with the night staff. But tonight she didn't have the energy. In their bedroom, a space she had designed to feel intimate despite its size, she found her nightgown laid out by the housekeeper and fresh water by the bed. Small kindnesses that had become routine, easily overlooked. Dante disappeared into the adjoining bathroom, giving her privacy to change. She moved slowly, her body aching with exhaustion and emotional depletion. The champagne gown fell away, replaced by soft silk. She removed her jewelry piece by piece and let her hair down, feeling the tension in her scalp release. When Dante emerged, he was wearing simple sleep clothes, dark pants, gray shirt. Without the armor of his tailored suits, he looked almost human. He moved to the window, giving her access to the bed. "I'll stay up for a while. Go ahead and sleep." Sophia slipped under the covers, feeling the cool sheets against her skin. Her hand found her belly again, cradling the life there. "Dante," he turned. "I felt the baby move for the first time last week," she said softly. "I didn't tell you because you weren't here, and then when you came home you were on the phone, and then you were working, and then it was the next day and the moment had passed." She saw him absorb the hit. "I'm sorry. I know." She closed her eyes. "I just wanted you to know what you've been missing. Not to hurt you. Just so you understand what this distance has cost us both." "I understand." She didn't open her eyes again. After a moment, she heard him settle into the chair by the window, keeping vigil while she slept. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. Sophia woke to sunlight streaming through curtains she didn't remember closing. Her hand went immediately to her belly, a reflex now, and she felt the reassuring presence of the life within. For a moment, she forgot everything that had happened. Then memory crashed over her like cold water. She sat up, finding the room empty. The chair by the window showed signs of recent occupation. A throw blanket, an empty coffee cup, but Dante was gone. She reached for her phone and found 17 missed calls from her brothers, a text from Matteo demanding confirmation she was alive, and a news alert from one of Rome's society columns. Scandal at Autumn Gala. Morelli accused of public humiliation. Her stomach dropped. She was reading the article, which gleefully recounted every detail of the previous night while speculating wildly about her identity, when the bedroom door opened. Dante entered carrying a tray. Sophia stared. In the year of their marriage, Dante had never once brought her breakfast. She hadn't even been sure he knew where the kitchen was. "Maria made eggs," he said, setting the tray on the bed carefully. I wasn't sure what you'd want. So there's also fruit and toast and some kind of pastry she insisted was good for pregnant women. You brought me breakfast. Yes. He straightened, clearly uncomfortable with the shift in their dynamic. Is that acceptable? Sophia looked at the tray, carefully arranged, still steaming, evidence of actual thought and effort, and felt something crack in her chest. It's acceptable, she managed. Dante nodded once, sharply, then moved toward the door. Aren't you going to eat? He paused. I wasn't sure you'd want me to stay. I'm not sure either, she admitted. But the eggs will get cold if you leave, and Maria will be offended. It was an olive branch. Small, easily rejected. Dante took it. He sat in the chair he'd occupied through the night, pulling it closer to the bed but maintaining distance. Neither spoke while Sophia ate. The eggs were perfect, the fruit fresh, the pastry some kind of honey-soaked miracle that she definitely needed more of. The news is reporting on last night, she said finally. I know. I've been handling it. Handling it how? I released a statement this morning taking full responsibility for inappropriate behavior caused by medication interaction. I apologized publicly to my wife for any misunderstanding and announced that we are expecting our first child. Sophia set down her fork. You announced the pregnancy? I thought, he hesitated. I thought if people were going to talk, they should have all the facts, including the fact that I consider this child a blessing, not a question mark. It was the right move strategically. It also cost him something, admitting error publicly, seeding the narrative, allowing vulnerability to show. My brothers will have seen the statement. I expect so. They'll want to meet with you. Dante's expression tightened. I expect that as well. You need to understand something. Sophia pushed the tray aside, giving him her full attention. My family doesn't make threats. They don't engage in posturing or play games. If Matteo says he can dismantle your organization in 15 days, he means it literally. He has contingencies for everything. Including your marriage? Especially my marriage. They never wanted this union. They worried, correctly it seems, that you would undervalue me. I had to fight to convince them to allow it. Why did you fight? Sophia considered the question. Because I believed you were different from what people said. I saw you at a charity event 3 years ago, before you knew I existed. You were watching the room like everyone else was a chess piece. But when a waiter dropped a tray and everyone laughed, you went over and helped him clean up. You didn't make a scene of it. You just helped. Dante's expression flickered with surprise. I don't remember that. You wouldn't. It was nothing to you. But it told me something about who you were beneath the armor. She paused. I've been waiting a year to see that man again. And instead you got the man who humiliated you at a party. Yes. The word hung between them, unavoidable. What would you have me do? Dante asked. Tell me what you need, and I'll do it. I need you to be honest. Completely honest. About everything. Such as Valentina, what happened between you, and whether it's truly over. Dante was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was carefully measured. Valentina and I were together for 2 years before our marriage. She wanted more than I was willing to give. When my advisor suggested I needed a wife for business purposes, she assumed she would be the choice. But you chose me instead. I chose you because you were unknown, unattached, no competing loyalties or expectations. He met her eyes. I chose you because I was a coward who didn't want to deal with Valentina's demands. It had nothing to do with your qualities and everything to do with my avoidance. The honesty was brutal, but Sophia appreciated it. And since our wedding, she has approached me several times. At events, through mutual connections, once at my office. I have declined each time. But last night I was angry about a business deal that fell through. I was drinking more than I should have. She found me at a vulnerable moment and exploited it. He paused. I let her. That's on me. Did you touch her? My hand on her back. Nothing more. But that was already too much. Sophia absorbed this. Why didn't you just come to me? When you were stressed about business, when you needed someone to talk to. Why not me? Because I didn't know how. The admission seemed to cost him. I've been alone since I was 17, when my father died and left me a crumbling empire to save. I learned to solve problems myself, trust no one, need no one. The skills that kept me alive are the same ones destroying my marriage. Can you unlearn them? I don't know, he said again. But I want to try. If you'll let me. Sophia studied him, this powerful man who had built an empire and didn't know how to build a relationship. There was something almost tragic about it. Something that made her anger soften despite herself. I need time, she said finally. I need to see change, not just hear promises. I need to believe that last night was a wake-up call, not just a temporary setback. How do I show you that? By being present. By choosing me over your work sometimes. By talking to me when you're struggling instead of withdrawing. By treating me as a partner, not a possession. I can do that. Can you? She held his gaze. Because if you can't, if this is just temporary contrition, then I need to know now. I won't raise a child in a house of cold silence and casual cruelty. You won't have to. The intensity in his voice was almost startling. I swear to you, Sophia, whatever it takes, whatever I need to change, I will do it. This child will grow up knowing their father loves their mother. Knowing their parents respect each other. Loving me? She caught the slip. You've never said that before. Dante went very still. I don't know what I feel, he admitted. I've never been good at emotions. But I know that when I saw your brothers walk through those doors, when I realized I might lose you, something in my chest felt like it was dying. I know that watching you sleep last night, knowing I caused you pain, was the worst experience of my life. And I know that right now, looking at you, I want more than I've ever wanted anything to be the man you need me to be. It wasn't a declaration of love. But it was something. One day at a time, Sophia said finally. That's what I can give you. One day at a time to prove you mean what you say. I'll take it. He rose, moving toward the door, but stopped with his hand on the frame. Sophia. Yes. Thank you. For not giving up on me yet. She didn't respond. Some things didn't need words. The story continues with Sophia confronting her brothers, the growing tension between Dante and the Bellini family, an external threat that forces unlikely alliances, and Dante's ultimate transformation as he learns to put love above pride. If this story touched you, remember that everyone deserves to be seen and valued, in fiction and in life. Thank you for joining Sophia and Dante on the beginning of their journey. Please like, share, and subscribe. The Bellini brothers arrived at the Morelli estate at precisely 2 in the afternoon. Sophia had spent the morning preparing, not for battle but for negotiation. She had showered and dressed carefully, choosing a deep blue dress that made her look capable rather than fragile. Her hair was pulled back in a simple twist, her makeup minimal but deliberate. She looked like a woman in control. She needed them to see that. Dante had made himself scarce, understanding instinctively that this conversation needed to happen without him present. He had retreated to his office, though Sophia suspected he was doing more pacing than working. Maria showed her brothers into the sitting room, and Sophia rose to meet them. Matteo's eyes swept over her, cataloging her condition with the practiced assessment of a man who had protected her since birth. Riccardo immediately moved to embrace her, his protective instincts overriding protocol. Luca hung back, observing everything with those unsettling calm eyes. You look well, Matteo said carefully. I slept. That helped. We saw his statement this morning. Riccardo's voice carried an edge. A medication interaction? That's his excuse. It's a cover story for the public. Not an excuse to me. And what excuse did he give you? Luca asked quietly. Sophia gestured for them to sit. Maria appeared with coffee and disappeared just as quickly, sensing the tension. He acknowledged what he did, Sophia said. He apologized. He asked for the opportunity to prove he can be better. And you believe him? Matteo's skepticism was palpable. I believe he was genuine in the moment. Whether he can sustain it remains to be seen. Sophia. Riccardo leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. He accused you of infidelity. He questioned the paternity of your child. In public. In front of hundreds of people who will never forget it. I know. I was there. Then how can you even consider staying? Because I chose this marriage. Her voice was steady, firm. Not father's choice. Not a strategic alliance. Mine. I looked at the options available to me, and I decided that Dante Morelli was worth the risk. Worth this. Matteo gestured vaguely at the situation. I didn't say I was right, but I made a commitment, and I don't abandon commitments easily. You raised me better than that. The brothers exchanged glances, a silent communication born of decades of shared experience. What do you want from us? Matteo asked finally. Time. Space. The opportunity to resolve this within my marriage before my family declares war. And if he hurts you again? Sophia met her eldest brother's eyes. Then you can burn his empire to the ground. But not before. Not without my permission. Ricardo made a frustrated sound. You're asking us to stand by and watch him. I'm asking you to trust me. Her voice cracked slightly. I'm asking you to believe that I know what I'm doing, that I can handle my own life, that I'm not the baby sister who needs constant protection. You will always be our baby sister, Luca said softly. That doesn't change because you're married or pregnant or capable. We protect you because we love you, not because we doubt you. Sophia felt tears threatening and blinked them back. I know, and I love you for it. But right now, I need you to protect me by letting me fight my own battles. Silence descended over the room. Finally, Matteo nodded slowly. 1 month. We will give you 1 month to determine whether this marriage is salvageable. During that time, we will remain in Rome, available if needed. After 30 days, we reassess. And if I need more time, then we discuss it. But understand, Sophia, if he touches you in anger, if he humiliates you again, if he does anything to endanger you or the baby, the month ends immediately. Agreed. Ricardo didn't look satisfied. I want to talk to him. No. Sophia. I said no. Whatever you need to say, you can say through me. Direct confrontation will only make things worse. She's right, Luca interjected. His pride is already wounded. Pushing him further could trigger defensive behavior. Better to let him come to the realization of his failures on his own terms. Ricardo scowled but didn't argue. There's something else you should know, Sophia said, deciding to reveal one more card. I believe someone has been feeding information to Dante's enemies. The business deal that failed yesterday, the one that contributed to his behavior, involved a betrayal from within his organization. All 3 brothers sharpened. Explain, Matteo said. I don't have proof yet, just patterns I've noticed over the past few months. Deals falling through at the last minute. Information that should be private becoming public. Small failures that add up to a larger picture. You think someone is sabotaging him? I think someone wants him vulnerable. And I think the timing of last night, his stress, his drinking, Valentina appearing at exactly the right moment, was not coincidental. Luca's eyes narrowed. You suspect the woman? I suspect everyone. But Valentina has motive and access. She wanted to be Mrs. Morelli. Instead, she got discarded for a stranger. That breeds resentment. You've been watching her? I've been watching everyone. Sophia allowed herself a small smile. Father didn't raise me to be blind. Matteo regarded her with something like pride. What do you need from us? Information. Your networks are broader than his. If someone is moving against the Morelli organization, you'll hear whispers before he does. Done. Luca will coordinate. Sophia felt a measure of relief. If she could uncover the threat to Dante's empire, she would have leverage, not to control him, but to prove her value as a partner. And maybe, in the process, to save her marriage. The brothers left after extracting more promises, more assurances, more commitments to call immediately if anything changed. Sophia watched them go with a mixture of exhaustion and determination. She found Dante in his office, exactly as she'd expected. Standing by the window, staring at nothing. They're gone. He turned. And, you have 1 month to prove yourself. 30 days. After that, they reassess. That's more than I expected. They trust me, even when they think I'm making a mistake. Dante absorbed this. Do you think you're making a mistake? Staying? Sophia moved into the room, taking in the space that she had rarely entered during their marriage. It was all dark wood and leather, masculine and impersonal. No photographs, no personal items. Nothing to suggest a man lived here rather than just worked. I think I'm making a choice, she said finally. Whether it's a mistake depends on what you do with it. Then tell me what to do. Give me instructions. A roadmap. Something. Marriage isn't supposed to work that way. Maybe not. But I've already proven I don't know how to do this naturally. I need help. She studied him. The tension in his shoulders, the tightness around his eyes, the way his hands clenched and unclenched at his sides. He wasn't used to asking for help. The admission cost him. Start with being present, she said. Dinner tonight. At home. With me. Not working. Not on the phone. Just present. I can do that. And talk to me about your day, your worries, the business deal that fell through. You know about that? I know more than you think. But I want to hear it from you. Dante nodded slowly. Anything else? Yes. I want to understand your organization, your business, the challenges you're facing. I want to be a partner, not a decoration. He hesitated. That's not. It's dangerous, Sophia. The less you know. I'm already in danger simply by being your wife, by carrying your child. The question is whether I face that danger informed or blind. She stepped closer. My family has been in this business for generations. I understand the risks. I also understand that knowledge is protection. Your brothers won't like it. My brothers don't get a vote. This is between you and me. She saw him wrestling with it, the ingrained instinct to protect by excluding, the fear of vulnerability, the uncertainty of trusting someone he had so recently underestimated. Finally, something in him yielded. Tonight at dinner, he said, I'll tell you everything. Dinner was quiet but not uncomfortable. Maria had prepared Sophia's favorites, a detail that made Sophia wonder if Dante had actually asked, or if the housekeeper was simply intuitive. Either way, the food was perfect, and for the first time in months, they sat across from each other with something other than tension filling the space. The deal was for shipping routes. Dante began as promised. Access to ports in Sicily that would have expanded our legitimate cargo operations. Legitimate being the key word. I'm trying to transition more of our business into legal channels. It's slower, harder, but more sustainable long-term. He paused, swirling the wine he wasn't drinking. The deal required approval from 3 families. 2 agreed. The third pulled out at the last minute. Which family? The Vitelli. Sophia's breath caught. Marco Vitelli's family. His father, specifically, Carlo Vitelli. He gave no explanation, just withdrew support and made the entire arrangement collapse. When did this happen? The meeting was yesterday morning. I spent all day trying to salvage it. By the time the gala started, He stopped, jaw tightening. That's not an excuse. There is no excuse. But it's context, Sophia said carefully. Context I didn't have. Would it have changed anything? Knowing I was already on edge when I saw you with his son. Maybe I would have understood why you reacted so extremely. Maybe I would have approached you differently, given you space instead of simply existing in the same room as another man. Dante shook his head. Don't make excuses for me. My reaction was unjustified regardless of circumstances. Sophia appreciated his refusal to minimize, even as she filed away the information about the Vitellis. Another piece in the puzzle she was building. What happens now with the shipping routes? I find another way, or I don't. Some battles aren't worth fighting. And which is this? He looked at her, really looked at her, and something shifted in his expression. A month ago, I would have said it was everything. That losing this deal was unacceptable, that I needed to retaliate, that the Vitellis had made an enemy. And now I'm sitting at dinner with my wife, having an actual conversation. And I'm realizing there are more important things than shipping routes. It wasn't a declaration of love, but it was progress. The days that followed established a new pattern. Dante came home for dinner. Not every night, some things couldn't be avoided, but more often than before. When he couldn't make it, he called. When he was late, he texted. Small gestures that added up to something larger. They talked. About business, about the pregnancy, about nothing in particular. Sophia learned about the pressures he faced, the enemies he navigated, the weight of an empire he had built from near collapse. Dante learned about her childhood, her brothers, the training she had received that no one outside her family knew about. He was fascinated by her hidden depths. She was touched by his willingness to discover them. 3 weeks into their tentative reconciliation, the first crack appeared. Sophia was reviewing financial documents in the sitting room, papers Dante had shared with her as part of his commitment to partnership, when Maria announced a visitor. Valentina Ricci walked into the room like she owned it. Mrs. Morelli. The greeting dripped with false sweetness. I hope I'm not interrupting. Sophia didn't rise, didn't show surprise, didn't give an inch. You are, actually. But I assume you knew that when you arrived unannounced. Valentina's smile tightened. I came to see Dante. I was told he was at home today. He's in a meeting. He won't be available for hours. Then I'll wait. No, Sophia said calmly. You won't. The blonde woman's carefully constructed facade flickered. Excuse me? You heard me. My husband doesn't receive guests without appointments. And he certainly doesn't receive women who approach him at parties while his pregnant wife is in the same room. I don't know what you think you saw. I know exactly what I saw. And I know exactly what you are. Sophia finally stood, using every inch of the Bellini training that had been drilled into her since childhood. You're a woman who wanted something she couldn't have, and now you're circling like a vulture, waiting for the carcass to fall. How dare! But here's what you don't understand. Sophia stepped closer, her voice dropping. I'm not the convenient arrangement he thought he married. I'm not powerless. I'm not alone. And if you ever approach my husband again, if you ever set foot in my home without invitation, you will discover exactly what happens when you cross a Bellini woman. Valentina's face had gone pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. I've been watching you, Valentina. I know about your meetings with Carlo Vitelli. I know about the information you've been feeding him. I know about the sabotage. For just a moment, something like fear flickered in the other woman's eyes. It was gone almost immediately, replaced by haughty denial. You're delusional. The stress of pregnancy has clearly affected your mind. Has it? Sophia smiled, and it wasn't pleasant. Then you won't mind if I share my delusions with my husband, or with my brothers. I'm sure they'd find my imaginings very interesting. Valentina's composure cracked. You don't know what you're dealing with. I think I do, but you're welcome to test that theory. The standoff lasted several seconds. Then Valentina turned, heading for the door. This isn't over, she said over her shoulder. No, Sophia agreed. It isn't, she told Dante that evening. His reaction was exactly what she expected, fury, followed by the cold calculation that made him dangerous. How long have you known? I suspected since the gala. I've been gathering proof since then. And the Vitellis? You think they're behind the business failures? Valentina is their weapon. She still has access to your inner circle through old connections, old loyalties. She's been feeding them information about your vulnerable points. Sophia handed him a folder she had compiled. It's all there. Meeting records, communication logs, financial transfers. Luca helped with some of it. His networks are impressive. Dante looked at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. You did all this. For me. For us. For our family. I don't deserve. Don't. She cut him off gently. Don't tell me what you do or don't deserve. Just tell me what you're going to do about it. He studied the folder, his mind clearly racing through implications and possibilities. The Vitellis aren't powerful enough to move against me directly, he said finally. But if they're working with Valentina, If they're building a coalition of smaller families who feel threatened by my legitimate expansion, then they become a serious problem. Yes. He looked at her. This will require careful handling. If I move too aggressively, I confirm their fears about my volatility. If I move too slowly, they grow stronger. What do my brothers suggest? Dante's jaw tightened. You've already consulted them? Luca has been my research partner. But I haven't discussed strategy with Matteo or Riccardo. I wanted to bring this to you first. Something in his expression softened. Why? Because you're my husband. Because this is your empire. Because I want to be your partner, not your manager. He set down the folder and moved toward her, stopping close enough to touch but not quite closing the distance. A month ago, you wouldn't have trusted me with this information. A month ago, you wouldn't have deserved to be trusted. And now, Sophia considered the question carefully. Now I think you're trying, really trying, and that earns you more trust than you had before. But not complete trust. Trust is earned in increments. Dante, we're not there yet, but we're closer than we were. He reached out, his hand hovering near her face before finally making contact. A gentle brush of fingers against her cheek. It was the first time he had touched her with tenderness since before the gala. I want to protect you, he said quietly. But I'm starting to realize that you don't need protection the way I assumed. You need partnership, respect, inclusion. Yes, I'm still learning how to give those things. I know, but I want to learn, more than I've ever wanted anything. Sophia leaned into his touch, allowing herself this small moment of connection. It wasn't forgiveness, not completely, but it was progress. Then keep learning, she said, and we'll figure out the Vitellis together. The next 2 weeks passed in a blur of strategy and surveillance. Dante brought Sophia fully into his inner circle, a move that raised eyebrows among his closest advisors. Alessandro, his second-in-command, was particularly skeptical. With respect, sir, involving your wife in operational matters. My wife uncovered a conspiracy that you missed. Dante cut in coolly. She has skills and connections that we need. Her involvement isn't up for debate. Sophia appreciated the support, even as she recognized the delicate balance required. These men had served Dante for years. They weren't accustomed to sharing space with a woman, especially one who had been invisible to them just weeks ago. She won them over slowly, methodically. An insight here, a connection there. When her analysis of shipping patterns revealed a secondary avenue for legitimate expansion, one that bypassed the Vitellis entirely, even Alessandro had to acknowledge her value. The alliance between them began to feel like something real. Meanwhile, the external threat grew. Luca's networks confirmed that the Vitellis were indeed building a coalition, gathering smaller families who feared what Dante's legitimate expansion might mean for their traditional operations. The argument was simple. If Dante went fully legal, he would draw attention. Investigations would increase. Everyone would suffer. It was a compelling narrative. And it was dangerous. They're planning something for the Founders' Gala, Luca reported during a secure call. 3 weeks from now. The same venue as the autumn party. Maximum visibility. What kind of something? We don't know yet, but they've been moving money, gathering loyalties, preparing. Whatever it is, it's designed to be public. Sophia felt ice in her veins. The autumn gala had been the site of her humiliation. The idea of returning there, of facing another public confrontation. But she was a Bellini, and Bellinis didn't run from fights. Then we prepare too, she told Dante that night. We don't hide. We don't cower. We show up stronger than before. Are you sure? After everything that happened there, that's exactly why we have to go back. If we avoid it, we look weak. If we show up and present a united front. She met his eyes. We changed the narrative. You'd be walking into a hostile environment, pregnant, vulnerable. I'd be walking into a hostile environment with my husband beside me and my brothers in the wings. That's not vulnerable. That's strategic. Dante studied her for a long moment. Then something in his expression shifted. Something that looked almost like awe. You're remarkable, he said quietly. I spent a year married to you and never saw it. You're seeing it now. Yes. He moved closer, his hand finding her belly where their child grew. I'm seeing everything now. Sophia covered his hand with hers. Then let's show them what we're capable of. Together. The Founders' Gala was held on the first Saturday of December. Sophia had spent weeks preparing, but not in the way she had prepared for the autumn party. This time, there was no anxiety about pleasing her husband, no uncertainty about her place. This time, she knew exactly what she was walking into and exactly what she planned to do about it. Her dress was red, deep, blood red, a color that would have been too bold a few months ago. It was designed to accommodate her now visible pregnancy, flowing elegantly over the curve that had become more pronounced. Her hair was styled elaborately, her jewelry chosen for maximum impact, her makeup dramatic but sophisticated. She looked like a woman who knew her worth. When Dante saw her descending the staircase, he went very still. You look like someone not to be underestimated? Like someone I should have been paying attention to from the beginning. Sophia smiled. Hold that thought. We have a show to put on. The car ride to the palazzo was different from their last journey there. Dante's hand found hers in the darkness, and he didn't let go. Whatever happens tonight, he said, we face it together. Together, she agreed. They arrived to find the venue transformed for the winter season. White lights replacing the autumn gold, evergreen garlands winding up the staircase. A different kind of magic filling the air. The photographers descended immediately, cameras flashing as Dante stepped out and then turned to help Sophia from the car. She saw the recognition in their eyes. Everyone remembered the autumn gala. Everyone was watching to see what would happen next. Dante offered his arm, and she took it. Together they walked up the stairs. The ballroom fell silent as they entered. 500 faces turned toward them, the same 500 who had witnessed her humiliation months ago. Sophia felt their eyes like physical weight, their whispers like buzzing insects. But she didn't shrink, didn't falter. Instead, she raised her chin and walked beside her husband into the heart of enemy territory. The Vitellis were already there. Carlo Vitelli stood near the center of the room, surrounded by the allies he had gathered. His son Marco hovered nearby, looking nervous. Valentina was nowhere to be seen, probably by design, given the threat Sophia had made. The tension was palpable. Morelli. Carlo's voice carried across the room as Dante and Sophia approached. I wasn't sure you'd have the courage to show your face after your incident last time. I go where I please, Vitelli. Dante's voice was ice. My wife and I appreciate your concern for our social calendar. Your wife. Carlo's eyes swept over Sophia with barely concealed contempt. Yes, we've all heard about the miraculous revelation of her family connections. Convenient timing, wasn't it? Just when you needed the Bellini name to shore up your damaged reputation. My reputation is intact, Dante replied, which is more than can be said for your coalition of frightened old men. Carlo's face reddened. You don't know what you're dealing with, boy. Don't I? Dante stepped closer, using his height advantage. I know about the meetings you've been having, the money you've been moving, the plans you've been making. He paused, letting the words land. I know everything, Vitelli, and I know who's been feeding you information. The crowd around them had gone deathly quiet. Everyone was watching, waiting. Your little spy made a mistake, Dante continued. She underestimated my wife. Thought she was dealing with a convenient arrangement. His arm tightened around Sophia's waist. She was wrong. Carlo's eyes flickered to Sophia, reassessing. She met his gaze without flinching. The Bellini family has made their position clear, Sophia said, her voice carrying perfectly. Any move against my husband is a move against me. And any move against me is a move against us. The voice came from behind them. Sophia didn't need to turn to know who had spoken. Matteo stepped into the center of the gathering, Riccardo and Luca flanking him. They moved with the same synchronized precision as before, their presence commanding immediate attention. The Bellini family has concerns about the coalition you've been building, Vitelli. Matteo's voice was calm, conversational, utterly terrifying. We find your approach destabilizing, and we don't appreciate anyone threatening our sister's family. Carlo had gone pale. I wasn't. This isn't. Your denials insult everyone's intelligence. Matteo moved to stand beside Sofia, his message clear. United front. Here is what's going to happen. Your coalition will dissolve. Your conspiracy will end. And you will provide full restitution for the damage your sabotage has caused to Morelli operations. And if I refuse? Matteo smiled, and it was the most frightening expression Sofia had ever seen on her brother's face. Then we have a different kind of conversation. One that doesn't happen in ballrooms. The threat hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. Carlo looked around the room, searching for allies. His carefully built coalition seemed to be reconsidering their positions. Facing Dante Morelli was one thing. Facing the combined might of Morelli and Bellini was something else entirely. This isn't over, Carlo said finally, but his voice had lost its confidence. Yes, Matteo replied quietly. It is. The Vitellis retreated, taking their diminished coalition with them. The crowd watched them go, then turned back to stare at the alliance that had just formed in front of them. Sofia felt Dante's arm tighten around her waist. Well, he murmured near her ear. That went better than expected. We prepared well. We did. He turned her to face him, and for a moment, the room disappeared. Just the two of them standing in the wreckage of their enemy's plans. I couldn't have done this without you. You could have, Sofia said. But you would have done it differently, more violently, with more casualties. Probably. He lifted his hand to her face, that gesture that had become precious to her. You make me better. I didn't know that was possible. Dante, let me say this. I need to say this. He took a breath. I was wrong about everything. About who you were, about what I needed, about what mattered. I thought power meant control, that strength meant never showing weakness, that I could build an empire and not need anyone beside me. And now I know that power means nothing without someone to share it with. That real strength is admitting when you need help. That the empire I built was always missing its most important piece. His gray eyes held hers. You, Sofia. It was missing you. The room had gone quiet around them again, but for entirely different reasons this time. 500 people were watching Dante Morelli, cold, proud, untouchable Dante Morelli, declare his feelings in public. I love you, he said, and the words carried. I should have said it months ago. I should have shown it every day. Instead, I wasted a year of our marriage being blind to what was right in front of me. Dante, I know I don't deserve forgiveness. Not after what I did to you here. Not after all the ways I failed. But I'm asking anyway. He reached for her hand, bringing it to his chest where she could feel his heart pounding. Stay with me. Let me spend the rest of my life proving that I can be the man you need. The husband you deserve. The father our child should have. Sofia felt tears threatening. Real tears this time, not the ones she had locked away months ago. She looked at the man in front of her, the man who had humiliated her in this same room, in front of these same people. But also the man who had worked every day since to change. Who had opened himself up to her judgment. Who had let her into his world and listened when she spoke. Who had just declared his love in front of 500 witnesses, knowing that if she rejected him, they would all see him fall. That took courage. A different kind than he was used to, but courage nonetheless. I love you too, she said softly. Even when I hated you, part of me loved you. I couldn't stop, no matter how hard I tried. Then you'll stay? I'll stay. She smiled through her tears. One day at a time. One step at a time. Building something real. Dante pulled her into his arms, holding her gently because of the baby, but with an intensity that said he never intended to let go. The room erupted in applause. Not the polite, obligatory kind, but genuine celebration. Whatever they had come to see tonight, this wasn't what they expected. and it was infinitely better. When Dante finally released her, Sophia turned to find her brothers watching with expressions that ranged from approval to grudging acceptance. "The month isn't over yet," Matteo pointed out, but there was no real warning in his voice. "I'll take my chances," Sophia replied. Ricardo stepped forward, his protective instincts clearly warring with his respect for her choices. "If he ever, then you can burn his empire to the ground. We discussed this." "We did." Ricardo's eyes moved to Dante. "Don't make me test that promise." "I won't," Dante said simply, and somehow everyone believed him. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of congratulations and strategic conversations. The power structure of Rome's elite had shifted visibly, and everyone wanted to understand what it meant for them. Sophia moved through it all with grace, her hand often finding Dante's, their new alliance visible in every glance and gesture. By midnight, they were both exhausted. "Take me home," Sophia murmured as they said their final goodbyes. "Home," Dante agreed. "Our home." The car ride back was peaceful, her head resting on his shoulder, his arm wrapped around her. The city lights passed by outside, but neither of them watched. "I want to renew our vows," Dante said quietly. Sophia lifted her head. "What?" "Our wedding was a business arrangement. I want something real, something that represents what we have now, not what we had then." "You want to get married again?" "I want to marry you this time, the real you, with your family present, with our child as witness." He touched her belly gently. "I want to promise you forever and mean it." Sophia felt her heart swell. "That's unexpectedly romantic. Is that a yes?" "That's an I need to think about it. But I'm leaning toward yes." Dante smiled. A real smile. Not the cold public version, but something warm and private. "I can work with that." They arrived home to find the staff had retired for the night. The house was quiet, lit only by the security lights that never went off. But tonight it didn't feel cold. "Sophia," she turned at the bottom of the staircase. "Tonight, when you were standing there in that dress, facing down the Vitellis, standing with your brothers," he shook his head. "I realized something." "What?" "I realized that I've been afraid my whole life. Afraid of weakness, of failure, of needing anyone. But watching you, seeing what real strength looks like, I understood that fear has been holding me back." He moved closer. "You're not afraid. You never have been." "That's not true," Sophia said softly. "I've been afraid of plenty of things. I was afraid you would never see me. Afraid I'd made a mistake marrying you. Afraid I'd have to raise this baby alone. And now I'm afraid of different things." She smiled. "But I'm not afraid of us anymore. Not afraid of what we could become." Dante reached for her, his hands finding her waist, pulling her gently closer. "Stay with me tonight," he said. "Not just in the same room. With me." Sophia looked at the man she had married, the man she had hated, the man she had learned to love. She saw the journey they had taken and the journey still ahead. And she made her choice. Yes. Later, in the darkness of their bedroom, with the city lights painting shadows on the walls, Sophia lay in Dante's arms and felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Not the absence of problems, there would always be problems. The Vitellis would nurse their grudge. Business would bring new challenges. The baby would arrive in 4 months and change everything again. But peace in knowing she wasn't alone. Peace in knowing she was seen, valued, loved. "What are you thinking?" Dante murmured, his hand tracing patterns on her shoulder. "I'm thinking about the future." "Good thoughts or worried thoughts?" "Hopeful thoughts." She turned to face him in the darkness. "I'm thinking about our child growing up in a house full of love. I'm thinking about building something lasting together. I'm thinking about getting old with you and still having conversations like this." That sounds. He paused, searching for words. "That sounds like something I never let myself want. And now I want it more than anything." He pulled her closer. "Now I can't imagine wanting anything else." They lay there as the night deepened. Two people who had started as strangers, become enemies, and found their way to something real. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was better. It was hard-won, tested by fire, built on honesty instead of illusion. It was love. The vow renewal took place on a spring afternoon, 5 weeks after their son was born. Matteo Bellini walked his sister down the aisle of a small chapel in the Italian countryside. Riccardo and Luca stood as witnesses. Alessandro and the rest of Dante's inner circle sat in the pews, their skepticism from months ago transformed into genuine respect. Little Marco Antonio Morelli, named for the legacy and the future, slept peacefully in his grandmother's arms. Mrs. Bellini had traveled from the family estate for the occasion, meeting her grandson for the first time and silently approving of the man her daughter had transformed. Dante waited at the altar, his black suit perfect, the tattoos that climbed his neck and arms visible in the afternoon light. But his eyes were soft as he watched Sophia approach. His cold mask dissolved completely. She wore ivory this time, not white, because this wasn't about pretending to be something she wasn't. The dress was simple, elegant, showcasing the woman she had become rather than the girl she had never been. The ceremony was intimate, personal, nothing like their first wedding. When the officiant asked Dante to speak his vows, his voice was steady and sure. I vow to see you, truly see you, every day of our lives, to value your strength as much as your softness, to trust your judgment, respect your choices, and treat you always as my equal and my partner. I vow to be present, to communicate, to choose our family over my pride. And I vow to love our son with everything I have, teaching him by example what it means to be a man worthy of the women in his life. Sophia felt tears streaming down her face and didn't bother to hide them. When it was her turn, she took his hands and spoke from the heart. I vow to keep seeing who you really are, beneath the armor and the reputation. To challenge you when you need challenging and support you when you need support. To build with you, fight beside you, and face whatever comes together. And I vow to love you, not the convenient arrangement, not the business alliance, but you. The man who brought me breakfast. The man who learned to change. The man who declared his love in front of 500 people because I deserved to hear it publicly after being hurt publicly. The room was silent except for a few quiet sniffles. I now pronounce you husband and wife again, the officiant said with a smile. You may kiss your bride. Dante pulled her into his arms and kissed her with all the passion that their first wedding had lacked. The small crowd erupted in cheers, and somewhere in the background, baby Marco let out a small cry, already learning to make his presence known. When they finally separated, Dante leaned his forehead against hers. Forever, he murmured. Forever, she agreed. Behind them, Matteo Bellini nodded once with approval. The brother who had been ready to burn down an empire had witnessed something better, the building of a true partnership. Riccardo was subtly wiping his eyes, though he would deny it later. Luca simply smiled, already calculating the strategic advantages of a united Morelli-Bellini dynasty. And Sophia, standing in the arms of the man she loved, feeling the weight of the ring on her finger and the promise it represented, felt the final piece fall into place. This was what she had fought for, what she had waited for, what she had almost lost. This was home. 2 years later, the Morelli estate had been transformed. Where once there had been cold marble and impersonal elegance, now there was warmth. Children's toys appeared in corners. Family photographs lined the walls. The sound of laughter echoed through halls that had known only silence. Marco Antonio Morelli, now 2 years old, ruled his kingdom with the confidence of a child who had never known anything but love. His dark hair came from his father, but his hazel eyes were all Sophia's, and he used them to devastating effect when he wanted something. Sophia watched from the garden as Dante chased their son through the roses. The dignified Mafia boss reduced to playful growling as he pretended to be whatever monster Marco had invented today. He's good with him. She turned to find Matteo standing beside her, coffee in hand, watching the same scene. He is, she agreed, better than I ever imagined. I'm glad. Her brother's voice was soft, sincere. I had my doubts. I know. But you were right. About him. About what he could become. Matteo met her eyes. I underestimated both of you. That seems to be a family trait where I'm concerned. He laughed, a rare sound. Perhaps. But I'm learning. Dante jogged over, Marco squealing with delight on his shoulders. The little boy reached immediately for Sophia, who took him into her arms with practiced ease. Uncle Matteo, Marco demanded attention, switching targets. Watch me run. Again. Matteo feigned exhaustion, but he was already setting down his coffee. Very well. Show me how fast you are. Sophia watched her brother chase her son through the garden and felt her heart expand with joy. Dante's arm came around her waist, pulling her against his side. Happy? He asked. Beyond measure. Good. He pressed a kiss to her temple. Because I have something to tell you. Oh. The Vitellis have formally surrendered their claims. Carlo has agreed to step down, and Marco, the elder Marco, has been negotiating with Luca for terms of peace. By next month, the last of our enemies will be neutralized. That's wonderful. It is. But that's not what I wanted to tell you. Sophia turned to look at him. Then what? Dante's hand moved to her stomach. Still flat, but not for much longer if her suspicions were correct. I know, he said softly. I can tell. Sophia felt her breath catch. She had only confirmed it herself yesterday. How? Because I know you now. Because I know you now, he repeated, his gray eyes soft with wonder. I know the way you touch your stomach when you think no one's watching. I know you've been avoiding wine at dinner. I know you've been tired in the afternoons, just like you were with Marco. Sophia felt tears prick her eyes. I was going to tell you tonight. I had this whole plan. Dinner, candles, the moment perfect. Every moment with you is perfect. Dante pulled her closer, his hands still resting protectively over where their second child grew. I spent so many years believing I didn't need anyone. That vulnerability was weakness. That love was a liability. And now I know that you are my greatest strength. That our family is the only empire that matters. That everything I built before means nothing compared to what we've built together. Marco came running back, Matteo following at a more dignified pace. The little boy crashed into his parents' legs, demanding to be picked up, and Dante lifted him easily. Mama crying, Marco observed with a toddler's brutal honesty. Happy tears, amore, Sophia assured him. Mama has happy tears. Why happy? Dante met Sophia's eyes over their son's head, a question in his gaze. She nodded. Because, Dante said carefully, you're going to be a big brother. Marco's face scrunched in confusion. Big brother. There's a baby growing in Mama's tummy, Sophia explained. A little brother or sister for you. The concept was clearly too abstract for a 2-year-old. But Marco seemed to grasp that something significant was happening. He patted Sophia's stomach solemnly. Baby, he said. Then, with the mercurial attention span of his age, can I have gelato? The adults laughed, tension breaking into joy. Gelato for everyone, Dante declared. We're celebrating. The news spread quickly through both families. Ricardo arrived within hours, unable to resist seeing his sister's happiness in person. He brought gifts for Marco and demands to know every detail of Sophia's health. You're hovering, Sophia told him fondly. I'm protecting. Same thing with you. He grinned, unrepentant. You're carrying my niece or nephew. I'm entitled to hover. Luca sent his congratulations through secure channels, along with a detailed analysis of how this pregnancy would affect various strategic considerations. Sophia read it, laughed, and filed it away. Her youngest brother would never change, and she loved him for it. The Bellini family matriarch, Sophia's mother, a formidable woman who had raised 4 children in the shadow of empire, arrived the following week. She swept through the Morelli estate like a force of nature, reorganizing staff, critiquing decor, and somehow managing to charm everyone she encountered. You've done well, she told Sophia quietly, on the evening before her departure. They were sitting in the garden, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of gold and rose. With the house. With everything. The house, the husband, the child, the life you've built. Her mother's eyes, the same hazel as Sophia's own, held warmth rarely shown to outsiders. Your father would be proud. Sophia felt the familiar ache of loss. Her father had died 3 years before her marriage, never knowing the man she would choose or the family she would create. I wish he could have met Dante. He would have been suspicious at first, protective. Her mother smiled. But he would have come around, once he saw how Dante looks at you. Your father always said he would know the right man by how he looked at his daughter. How does Dante look at me? Like you're the center of his universe. Like nothing else matters when you're in the room. Her mother reached over to squeeze her hand. The same way your father looked at me. Sophia let the tears fall this time, not bothering to hide them. I miss him. So do I. Every day. Her mother's voice was steady, practiced in the art of carrying grief alongside joy. But he lives on in you. In your strength, your wisdom, your stubborn refusal to accept less than you deserve. And now he'll live on in your children too. They sat together until the last light faded, 2 Bellini women watching the sky and thinking about the men who had shaped them, the father who had raised her to be strong, and the husband who had learned to deserve her. The second pregnancy was easier than the first in some ways, harder in others. Easier because Sophia knew what to expect. The exhaustion, the nausea, the strange cravings. Harder because she had a toddler to chase while her body worked overtime to grow another life. Dante was different this time too. With Marco, he had been learning. Uncertain. Terrified of making mistakes. This time he was confident. Not in a way that dismissed Sophia's needs, but in a way that allowed him to truly support her. He took over bedtime routines when she was too tired. He held her hair back during morning sickness. He attended every doctor's appointment, asking questions, taking notes, remembering details she forgot. You're nesting, Sophia observed one afternoon, finding him organizing the nursery they had started preparing. I'm preparing. Same thing. He turned to look at her, something vulnerable in his expression. I missed so much with Marco. I was present, but I wasn't engaged. Not the way I should have been. You learned. I did. But I can't get that time back. He moved toward her, his hands finding her now prominent belly. I won't miss anything this time. I refuse to. Dante. Sophia covered his hands with hers. You're an incredible father. Marco adores you. Marco doesn't know what those first months were like. How distant I was. How scared. Neither will this baby. And neither should matter because you're here now. You've been here. That's what counts. He leaned his forehead against hers, a gesture that had become their private moment of connection. I love you, he said, more than I knew it was possible to love anyone. I know. Sophia smiled. I love you too. Even when you're being ridiculous about the past. I prefer reflective. You would. They stood there in the half-finished nursery, surrounded by paint samples and baby furniture. And Sophia felt the familiar sense of peace settle over her. This was what she had fought for, what she had almost lost, what she would protect with everything she had. Home, family, love. Everything else was just details. The baby came on a stormy night in October. Sophia's water broke during dinner, 2 weeks before her due date. Marco was already in bed, watched over by Maria and a small army of staff who would keep him occupied while his parents dealt with the arrival of his sibling. The drive to the hospital was tense. Dante white-knuckled on the steering wheel, Sophia breathing through contractions that came faster than expected. Almost there, Dante kept saying. Almost there. You're doing amazing. Almost there. Stop saying almost there and actually get there, Sophia gritted out between waves of pain. He drove faster. The labor was shorter than the first time, more intense, a blur of pain and pressure and the determination to push through. Dante never left her side, holding her hand, letting her squeeze until his fingers went numb, telling her over and over that she was strong. She was incredible. She was almost done. And then, at 3:47 in the morning, a new cry filled the room. A girl, the doctor announced. A beautiful, healthy girl. Sophia sobbed with relief and joy as they placed her daughter on her chest. The baby was red-faced and furious, clearly unhappy about being evicted from her comfortable home. But she was perfect. 10 fingers, 10 toes, a thatch of dark hair, and lungs that could wake the entire hospital wing. "She's so beautiful," Sophia breathed. Dante stood beside the bed, his usual composure completely shattered. Tears streamed openly down his face as he looked at his daughter for the first time. "She's perfect," he managed. "Sophia, she's perfect. Do you want to hold her?" The doctor helped transfer the baby to Dante's arms, and Sophia watched her powerful, dangerous, once cold husband melt completely. "Hello, Piccola," he whispered. "I'm your papa. I've been waiting to meet you for so long." The baby, as if recognizing his voice from months of hearing it through Sophia's belly, quieted. Her eyes, unfocused, still newborn blue, seemed to search for the source of the sound. "She knows you," Sophia said. "I talk to her every night," Dante admitted. "While you slept, I told her stories, promised her things." "What kind of things?" "That I would always protect her, that I would teach her to be strong, but never make her feel she had to be strong alone. That I would love her mother in front of her every day, so she would know what real love looks like and never settle for less." Sophia felt fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. "Dante, I promised her that she would never wonder if she was wanted, never doubt that she was seen." He looked up, meeting Sophia's eyes. "I promised her the childhood I didn't have, the family I never knew was possible." Sophia reached for him, for their daughter, pulling them both as close as her exhausted body would allow. "We'll give her all of that," she whispered. "Together." "Together," he agreed. The baby began to fuss, hungry for her first feeding, and the spell broke into the practical concerns of new parenthood. But the moment lingered, a promise made, a future claimed, a family completed. They named her Isabella Maria Morelli. Isabella for Dante's grandmother, the only person who had shown him tenderness during his brutal childhood. Maria for the housekeeper who had become family, who had watched their marriage transform from obligation to love, who had helped raise Marco and would help raise Isabella too. The Bellini brothers arrived en masse the next morning, crowding into the hospital room with gifts and demands to hold their niece. Matteo claimed first rights as eldest, cradling Isabella with surprising gentleness for a man whose hands had done terrible things. "She looks like Sophia," he observed. "Thank God for that," Riccardo added. "Can you imagine if she looked like him?" "Standing right here," Dante pointed out dryly. "We know." Luca took his turn with the baby, his analytical mind clearly cataloging every feature. "She has your bone structure, actually, the Morelli jaw. It will serve her well." "She's a day old," Sophia laughed. "Can we wait before planning her intimidation strategies? In this family?" "No." Marco arrived with Maria shortly after, brought to meet his little sister. He approached the bassinet with the suspicious caution of a toddler whose territory was being invaded. "Baby," he said, pointing. "Yes, amore. This is Isabella, your little sister." Marco considered this information. Then, with the gravity of a judge delivering a verdict, he leaned over and placed a careful kiss on Isabella's forehead. "My baby," he declared. The room melted. "Yes," Dante said, his voice rough with emotion. "Your baby sister. You're going to help take care of her, right?" "I help," Marco agreed seriously. "I'm big. The biggest," Sophia confirmed. Satisfied with his new role, Marco allowed himself to be distracted by the toys his uncles had brought, leaving the adults to coo over Isabella. "You've done well, Morelli," Matteo said quietly, moving to stand beside Dante. "Better than I expected. High praise from you. Don't let it go to your head." But there was warmth beneath the words. "My sister is happy. My niece and nephew are healthy. My family's alliance is strong. These are good things." "They are. Don't ruin them." Dante met the older man's eyes. "I won't." Matteo studied him for a long moment, then nodded. Something had shifted between them, not quite friendship, but respect. Understanding. The acknowledgement of two powerful men who had found common ground in their love for the same woman. Then we have no problems, Matteo said. No problems, Dante agreed. The first months with 2 children were chaos. Beautiful chaos, but chaos nonetheless. Marco was adjusting to sharing his parents' attention, sometimes gracefully, sometimes with spectacular tantrums. Isabella was a demanding baby, colicky, resistant to sleep, insistent on being held constantly. Sophia and Dante moved through it together, tag-teaming nighttime feeds, trading off toddler duties, collapsing into bed exhausted and somehow still finding moments of connection. I never imagined this, Dante admitted one night, as they lay in the darkness listening to the silence that meant both children were finally asleep. Imagined what? Any of it. Marriage, children, wanting to come home at the end of the day because home was where you were. And now I can't imagine anything else. He turned to face her, barely visible in the darkness. You changed everything, Sophia. You changed me. We changed each other. Maybe. His hand found hers under the covers. But I know what I was before you. Cold. Closed off. Convinced that power was the only thing that mattered. And what are you now? Still cold to most people, he admitted with a trace of humor. Still closed off. Still convinced that power matters. But I know it's not the only thing. I know that what happens in this house, the love, the family, the life we're building, is more important than any empire. That's quite an evolution. I had a good teacher. Sophia smiled in the darkness. Flattery won't get you out of the 3 a.m. feeding. I was hoping. Nice try. He laughed softly, the sound still surprising her even after all this time. The man she had married rarely laughed. The man he had become did it almost daily. I love you, he said, as he had said every night since the gala where he first declared it publicly. I love you too, she replied, as she had replied every night since. It was ritual now, their private ceremony. A reminder of what they had built from the ashes of that first terrible marriage. A promise renewed daily, worn smooth with repetition but never losing its meaning. 5 years later, the Morelli estate was overflowing with people. Marco, now 7, was leading a pack of cousins through the gardens in some complicated game of his own invention. Isabella, 5, was attempting to keep up with the older children despite her shorter legs and occasional demands for piggyback rides. The adults had gathered on the terrace for the annual family celebration that had become tradition, Morelli's and Bellini's together, the alliance that had begun with one marriage now encompassing multiple generations. Sophia watched her children play and felt the familiar swell of gratitude. Lost in thought, she turned to find Dante beside her, 2 glasses of wine in hand. He offered her one, and she took it gratefully. Just counting blessings. Finding many? Too many to count. He stood beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched, watching their children with the same quiet contentment. Marco asked me today if I would teach him to fight, Dante said. What did you tell him? That I would teach him to defend himself, but that real strength isn't about fighting. It's about knowing when not to fight, when to walk away, when to choose peace over victory. Sophia smiled. You've come a long way from the man who believed power was everything. I had help. He glanced at her. I told him about us, about how badly I treated you in the beginning, about how I had to learn to be better. That's a lot for a 7-year-old. He asked why Mama sometimes cries when she looks at old pictures. I thought he deserved the truth. An age-appropriate version, anyway. Sophia felt her throat tighten. She did cry sometimes, looking at photos from their early marriage. Not from sadness, but from the sharp relief of how close they had come to losing everything. What did he say? He said he was glad I learned, and that he would never make a girl cry. Dante's voice held a note of pride. Our son has a good heart. He has a good father. He has an extraordinary mother. I just try to keep up. Across the garden, Isabella had given up on the bigger children's game and wandered over to where her grandmother sat in the shade. The Bellini matriarch, now in her 70s but still sharp as ever, welcomed the interruption. Tell me a story, Nana, Isabella demanded. What kind of story? A love story. With a princess. The older woman smiled, the expression softening her formidable features. Very well. Once upon a time, there was a princess who was very clever. She knew that the world would underestimate her, so she hid her strength behind gentle smiles. Sophia listened to her mother's voice drifting across the garden, telling a thinly veiled version of her own story. She felt Dante's arm come around her waist, pulling her against his side. "She's telling Isabella about us," Dante observed. "The age-appropriate fairy tale version. I come off as quite the villain in the beginning, don't I?" "You earned it." "I did." He pressed a kiss to her temple. "I'm grateful every day that you gave me the chance to become someone else. You became who you always could have been. I just helped you see it." They stood together as the afternoon stretched toward evening, surrounded by family, by love, by the life they had built from the wreckage of his pride and her patience. It hadn't been easy. It hadn't been quick. There had been setbacks. Moments when old habits resurfaced, when his cold instincts clashed with her need for warmth. But they had worked through each challenge together, learning and growing and refusing to give up on each other. Now, 5 years into their real marriage, the one that had begun at the Founders' Gala when he declared his love publicly, they had something unshakable. Something that had been tested by fire and emerged stronger. "Dante." He looked at her. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what?" "For becoming the man I always believed you could be. For loving our children with your whole heart. For proving every day that you meant what you said that night." His gray eyes, once cold and unreadable, now held a warmth that was for her alone. "I meant every word," he said. "I will always mean every word." The children came running then, demanding attention, ending the private moment. But Sophia held onto it anyway, another memory to add to the collection, another proof that love could grow from the most unlikely soil. She had been underestimated once, humiliated publicly, forced to reveal a strength she had kept hidden. But she had also been loved, truly, deeply, transformatively loved, by a man who had learned to see her. That was the story she would tell her children someday. Not the fairy tale version, but the real one. The story of how their father had been cold and proud and broken. How he had hurt her badly, publicly, unforgivably. And how he had spent every day since then proving that people could change. That love could heal. That second chances were worth fighting for. It was a better story than any fairy tale. Because it was true. The end. This story was about the journey from darkness to light, from pride to love, from isolation to family. If it moved you, remember that growth is always possible. For ourselves and for those we love. Thank you for walking this path with Sophia and Dante. Please like, share, and subscribe.